Welcome to an Introduction to Accounting, brought to you by Parkbench Tutors and narrated by David Hopcroft. You can find us at parkbenchtutors.com, or you can find us on Facebook. Just look for Parkbench Tutors. We're going to continue our work on costing and on the bookkeeping of costing by looking at the interlocking system. Remember, bookkeeping consists of financial accounting, which is all the transactions of the business as a whole, but also it consists of cost accounting, where we're interested in the revenue and costs and attributing these to whatever we produce or whatever activity we have. And of course we have to reconcile the cost system accounting to the financial accounting system. We're not concerned with drawings, capital, reserves or assets except for inventory. And we are concerned with raw materials, with work in progress and with finished goods. Our data comes from income accounts and from expenditure accounts, and the objective is to charge all costs to end products, either directly through the jobs or indirectly using absorption systems. Cost accounts are not affected by receipts from trade receivables or from payments to trade payables, or for discounts allowed, received, sale or purchase of fixed assets, or by dividends and shares. The integrated system we have already dealt with in a separate podcast. See that podcast if you want to find out more about the integrated system. The interlocking system, where we have books divided into a financial ledger and a cost ledger, is the subject of this podcast. So let's look at the system for an integrated system with sustainable engineering. We have details from their trial balance at the start of the year. We've lumped together quite a bit into fixed assets to simplify it. So we have ordinary shares, reserves, fixed assets, the accumulated depreciation and the cash at that point. And we have the income statement, and that's at the end of the year. So really what we're going to do is try and reconstruct what went on in the cost ledger and the financial accounting ledger. The additional information we need, in particular the amount of depreciation and the fixed overhead, the absorption rate, which is 45% of direct labour hours. We start by transferring information from the trial balance to financial ledger accounts. That's the opening balances, and those are for ordinary shares, reserve, fixed assets, accumulated depreciation and the cash book. So let's transfer the opening trial balance as account entries. Ordinary shares we bring forward as figure, reserves we bring forward, fixed assets we bring forward, accumulated depreciation we bring forward, and cash we bring forward. There we are. Those are our accounts from the opening trial balance. Now remember, the cost ledger and the financial ledger are kept separately, and the cost ledger has a control account, as does the financial ledger. These control accounts will be self-balancing. So let's enter the details for the direct labour. That's the wages, for the material and for the variable overhead. So we're starting to build now our cost ledger control account. So materials, debit materials 4,000, credit the control account with 4,000. Wages, debit it with 25,000, credit the control account with 25,000. And variable overhead, debit that with 12,000, credit the control account with 12,000. Now we do a similar thing to enter the expenses of rent, for the manager's salary and for depreciation. Remember, the double entry is to the control account, so debit rent, credit the control account. Debit the manager's salary as an expense, credit the control account. Debit the depreciation, credit the control account. Okay, now let's start putting together the details that we need for the fixed overhead. We're going to take the rent, so we debit the fixed overhead and credit the rent. The manager's salary, which is part of fixed overhead, so debit fixed overhead, credit the manager's salary. Depreciation, debit the fixed overhead, credit the depreciation account. And now we've got that, our work in progress will be 45% of direct labour costs, so we're going to credit the fixed overhead with 45% of direct labour costs, and that will give us a fixed overhead for work in progress of 11,250. You'll note the fixed overhead account hasn't balanced. We'll come back to that in a minute. We now transfer the wages and variable overhead to the work in progress. and our materials. So here we are, materials, wages, variable overhead, all gone to work in progress. And the completed work in progress now will come to 88,250. So we'll transfer that to finished goods by crediting work in progress, debiting finished goods. Finished goods will become cost of sales, so we'll credit the finished goods and debit our cost of sales. We can now enter our sales figures, so we will credit the sales account and we will debit the cost ledger control account. So now let's start compiling our profit and loss account. Remember I said that the fixed overhead didn't balance. It didn't balance because there was under absorption for fixed overhead, so we need to correct that and add the 1250 needed to balance it. Well, that will affect the profit and loss account, so I credit the fixed overhead and my other entry will be a debit to the profit and loss account. We debit the cost of sales, so we're going to credit the cost of sales account and debit cost of sales to our profit and loss account. Similarly, we're going to debit our sales and credit the profit and loss account with sales. And we've now got to balance our profit and loss account and also balance our cost ledger control account. And of course the figure that's missing is the profit, which is 54,500. All those accounts in the cost ledger have now been balanced out to zero. So let's look at what's been happening in the financial ledger. Entries are made for the expenses of rent, salary and depreciation, and we're going to use the financial control account here. So debit the financial control account with the rent, debit it with the manager's salary, and note the manager's salary is paid out cash, so we're going to credit the cash book just as we credited the cash book with rent. Debit the control account with depreciation. In this case, of course, we're crediting accumulated depreciation here. And cost of materials, labour and variable overhead have now been to be entered. So materials will go first of all a credit of 40,000 to the creditors or the payables and debit the control account with 40,000. Wages, we'll debit the control account with the amount for wages, and of course we'll credit the cash book here. And the variable overhead, we'll debit the control account with 12,000 and credit the cash book with 12,000. Right, now let's enter our sales figures, which first of all will be receivables. So we will credit the control account with the 144,000 and debit the receivables. Now we have money that's going to be received from those sales and money that we're paying to suppliers. So let's deal first of all with the sales. When we receive the money from that, we'll receive 144,000 cash, so we'll credit the receivables and debit the cash book. And for the payables, we will credit the cash book and debit the payables account. So that's everything paid for, and we've received money for everything that we've sold. The financial ledger control account now has to be balanced, and to balance it we come up with the £54,500 for profit, and of course there needs to be a opposing entry for a double entry, and we will credit the reserves because the reserves have gone up by the profit we've made for the year at 54,500. So that's the interlocking system then, where you keep two separate systems. A lot of entries, but I think we've gone through and covered them all here. That ends our podcast on the interlocking system, brought to you by Parkbench Tutors and narrated by David Hopcroft. You can find us on Facebook or look us up at parkbenchtutors.com. If you are interested in having a playlist for all of our videos, then you can sign up for us. We've got an account, a Moodle account. Just look us up on Parkbench Tutors and we can give you access to other course materials. Thank you for watching and listening. We wish you success in your studies.